It's run by my accredited coaches that I've trained myself, and you can go on and get your questions answered, and it just gives a bit of support to people who need it.
OK, and very quickly, the first start for somebody who's listening and watching and thinking, all right, I want to divorce my partner, what's the first thing they need to be doing?
Get your ducks in a line. Don't rush into something. First of all, if you can save the marriage and work at it, try that. If you know it's done, then look at getting your breakups team around you. So, yeah, a good friend you can confide in, a good legal advisor, financial advisor. Get the people around you who can answer the questions that keep you awake at night. It's a great way to dial down the negative emotions and start to feel a bit more in control.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, 9:30 on Tuesday, the 20th of January, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, it's Chagos chaos. Back in February, Donald Trump indicated that he was in favour of Britain handing over sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius.
I have a feeling it's going to work out very well. They're talking about a very long-term, powerful lease, a very strong lease, and I think we'll be inclined to go along with your country. Yeah.
However, today on his Truth Social, he calls Britain's decision to hand the Chagos Islands to Mauritius a great stupidity. And sticking with Trump,
we have to have it. They have to have this done. They can't protect it. Denmark, they're wonderful people. And I know the leaders are very good people, but they don't even go there.
Well, the US president has also doubled down on taking over Greenland, claiming that Denmark can't protect it. Meanwhile, our Prime Minister pleads with the EU not to start a trade war with America.
and families at war. End it like Beckham. Brooklyn Beckham says he does not want to reconcile with his parents, David and Victoria. He calls them controlling, manipulative, in what is frankly an explosive post on social media.
So I think it's the responsible thing to do to consult on all the different options available, from a ban on social media for the under-16s to things like curfews overnight to help kids with their sleep.
Are under-16s going to face a social media blackout? Well, the government wants a social media restriction for under-16s and phone-free schools as they crack down on children's screen time. But does the consultation go far enough?
Sounds like another U-turn to me. And Kemi Badenoch tells Tory MPs, quit if you're considering defecting to Reform UK. We're going to ask her later, shouldn't she be trying to convince them to stay? She'll join us shortly.
And it's deadline day for the decision on whether to grant China permission for a new London super embassy. 5 of our allies, including America, want us to reject the plans.
I think if this gets the go-ahead, this Chinese embassy, the biggest embassy we'll have in Britain, one of the biggest in Europe, overlooking the Tower of London, an historic part of Britain, with all those extraordinary underground chambers, which we think will give them great access to all the information about the city and those cables underground. I think it's going to be a hell of a row.
Well, it's extraordinary, isn't it? And the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, he's actually in the UK at the moment. Yeah. He's addressing Parliament this morning. We'll have some pictures of that. He actually said yesterday, he was talking to a journalist and said that he was unsure that this was a good idea and the US would have preferred to have the space themselves. Very measured language, perhaps, compared to what Donald Trump would use. But it shows that if even our closest allies think it's a bad idea, what are we doing?
But of course, Keir Starmer is going to China next week, and I think he wants this permission under his arm, in his briefcase, to give to the Chinese president. Didn't you do something like that by giving Donald Trump a state visit? That went very well, Prime Minister, didn't it?
I'm not
sure. Is this
sure.
going to go so well?
Not the greatest return on investment. Of course, we will have the latest on that extraordinary intervention from Donald Trump just this morning, saying that the Chagos Islands deal is a really, really bad deal. Are they in time to stop it actually happening? It's still going through Parliament.
Certainly is. As ever, we want to know what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good morning. The top stories from the GB Newsroom. Donald Trump says that Britain's great stupidity of ceding the Chagos Islands to Mauritius is another in a very long line of national security reasons why Greenland has to be acquired on his Truth Social platform. The US president saying last night he was 100% committed to hitting the UK and European allies with tariffs over their opposition to his plan to annex Greenland. The water industry is set for a once-in-a-generation set of reforms, the government says, as it proposes new legislation to overhaul the system. And the rate of UK unemployment remained unchanged at 5.1% in the 3 months to November, the ONS says. Meanwhile, UK wage growth has fallen back once again as official figures reveal deepening jobs woes in the retail and the hospitality sectors. And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more news from me at 10 o'clock.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. You're watching and listening live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Kate. And it's only 9:30, Andrew, but the headlines have already changed completely from when I woke up.
Well, extraordinary, because the President of the United States, on his Truth Social website, has described Britain's decision to hand the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. We're not handing them to them, by the way. We're giving them to the Chagos with billions of pounds of money as a, quote, great stupidity.
Well, in contrast, back in February, Donald Trump said this about the deal.
Well, we're going to have some discussions about that very soon, and I have a feeling it's going to work out very well. They're talking about a very long-term, powerful lease, a very strong lease, about 140 years, actually. That's a long time. And I think we'll be inclined to go along with your country. Yeah.
So, of course, this is relating to the Chagos Islands, where we have got a very important military base, Diego Garcia, which is a really important station, not only actually for
Well, it's a US base, really.
British military, exactly, also for American. I was really surprised, given how keen Donald Trump is on protecting US interests around the world, that he didn't say anything critical about this deal a year ago. In fact, he seemed to think that it was a good deal. And yet, I wonder why he's changed his mind right now.
Well, is it because Britain is refusing to go along with his balmy plan to buy Greenland or invade Greenland or take over Greenland? Or has he woken up to the fact it could be a serious security issue? The Chagos Islands was our last African colony. We had it since 1814. The reason, in my view, Starmer decided to surrender it is because of his colonial guilt.
Yeah, and
that's
kind of
what it's all about.
Bending to international law, there was some judgment against it, but it's not something we had to abide by.
There was a ruling by the International Court, which was advisory. Parliament wasn't consulted. The Prime Minister used prerogative powers, which are handed down by the monarchy. It was always an extraordinary decision. However, it has to be said, negotiations to hand over the Chagos Islands started under the last Tory government. Of course they did. But it was this government that concluded it, but it's not done the deal.
No, it's not ratified yet, so potentially it's not too late. But, you know, like you say, the Foreign Office policy for some years now has been to prioritise China because of their economic strengths and the fact that we are so tied to them economically. But even when it compromises national security, and that's clearly what Donald Trump has woken up to. But I know there are some people in the Trump administration who've been trying to get him to understand the significance of this for some time. So what is it that has made him see that now? Is it his anger with Starmer? Is it the fact that as the US looks at some sort of military action in Iran, they've realised afresh how much they need this base?
They do.
It could be any of those things.
Yeah. And there is a treaty that's emerged, which presumably the British government knew about, which Mauritius have signed up to, which would effectively not allow the use of any nuclear missiles or missiles of that calibre from the Diego Garcia military base. Well, why does the American need that base then?
Exactly.
Because they would want to
useless military base if you can't protect it.
They would want to keep all options. Well, let's bring in Robert Midgley, who's a spokesman from the Friends of the British Overseas Territories. Mr. Midgley, good morning to you. None of us can predict why the President of the United States has changed his mind, because he does rather a lot of that. But can you explain to us why you think it's significant that perhaps these islands should remain as they are, very much with America and Britain in charge of the military base?
Well, to start with, Andrew, this isn't just an intervention. It's effectively a US veto on this whole deal, which is what we have been praying for the past few years, for the president to finally wake up and realise that this is a bad deal. Because, of course, the government, the UK government, have been saying this whole time, this deal is to secure the electromagnetic spectrum, which is all about satellites and communication. And this was forced onto us by decades of lawfare of lawyers from the Mauritius side, identifying loopholes in places like the ITU, which is the International Telecommunications Union, and of course UNCLOS, the UN Convention of the Laws of the Seas. But what the UK didn't do was deploy the defence mechanisms of Article 48 and Article 298, which are military exemptions. So we didn't deploy that to defend ourselves, which has led to the ICJ non-binding ruling, which of course cannot become binding because there are 2 Commonwealth nations involved. So the whole thing has been based on bogus lawfare that has built up over the past few decades, which has come to this. And we're really happy that the US president has finally woken up to it. It's partly due to intense lobbying on our behalf, we like to think, but also the US must have realized that the whole legal basis has been completely bogus this whole time. And they've had intense lobbying from Peter Mandelson and people whispering into their ears in the White House saying this is a good deal. But, you know, we have been given this away for no reason whatsoever, and he's finally highlighted that.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but can we just pause for one moment, because we're getting live pictures from inside UK Parliament in Westminster of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, addressing parliamentarians this morning live. Let's have a listen what he's got to say.
Thank you for those kind words, your gracious invitation to be here today, my friend. It means so much to us. It's a real detriment to follow Speaker Hoyle. I don't like to do this. At the G7 speakers meetings, I just want you to know, when he gets wound up and going, it's just like Churchill, and it goes on and on and on. And I try to speak before him at all times. I don't want to follow, but really, really grateful to be here. He has become a dear friend, and all of you, we've met so many great friends. My wife Kelly and I are truly touched by how warmly we've been received here, and having met so many of you in the past couple of days, we walked away with this sense that we do have close and dear friends here across the pond, and we have this shared heritage, and we treasure that. It is a profound honor to be speaking in Parliament today, to be the first U.S. Speaker of the House ever given this honor, and I take it very seriously. As proud Americans, it is as though we have returned to the spiritual birthplace of our own nation. And the history here, the weight of it is palpable, as you know. It gives you a certain sense of just being serious. I was going to roll on with a bunch of jokes this morning, but it doesn't feel right to be in this place at this time. We have returned at a pivotal moment, obviously, in the great histories of our countries, to mark this anniversary that we have in our nation, and to celebrate what we've achieved together in the past, and importantly, to face and overcome together the challenges of our present day. And I want to tell you, my friends, we will do that together. That's what I bring you that message. When I met with Prime Minister Starmer at Downing Street yesterday, I told him that I thought his national address a few hours earlier was well done. He noted, of course, that the UK and the US are close allies, and that our strong, constructive partnership all these years has been built on mutual respect and focused on results. I thought that was exactly the right message and the right tone. And because of that, we've always been able to work through our differences calmly as friends, and we will continue to do that. I want to assure you this morning that that is still the case. I spoke to President Trump at length yesterday, and I told him that I really felt that my mission here, that even though we planned this back in the fall, we didn't know how the events would develop over the last few days. But I told the President that I felt that my mission here today was to encourage our friends and help to calm the waters, so to speak, and I hope to do so. As the Prime Minister said yesterday, let us look to agreement, continue our dialogue, and find a resolution, just as we always have in the past. And in that process, I am confident that we can and will maintain and strengthen our special relationship between these two nations, send a message of unity and resolve to our allies around the world, and remind our adversaries and the terrorists and tyrants everywhere that our nations that are dedicated to freedom and justice and order and human dignity are stronger and more resolved now than ever before. I think it's a very important message. Of course, we do gather here at a unique and consequential moment in American history. This year, as noted, is the time we mark our 250th anniversary of our independence. Now, I know this is not a long span of time in the scale of human history. I get that. We were touring the 1,000-year-old Windsor Palace a day or so ago, and that really set it into reality for us. At the dinner we had here last night that Speaker Hoyle and Lady Catherine graciously hosted for us, it was not lost on me that there at my table were items of silverware older than my country. Puts it in perspective. But this year in particular, we remember just how far we really have come, how our nations have evolved and grown and strengthened in so many ways together. America's founders embarked on what was a radical experiment, of course, a government of, by, and for the people, ruled by laws and based on the self-evident truth that all men are created equal and free. That experiment transformed 13 disparate, distant colonies from the world's largest empire into what became the world's freest and most successful self-government in human history. For Americans, this year is not simply a celebration, it is an invitation to come together and to ask what we are doing in our own time to preserve and fortify that experiment and all of the blessings of liberty and opportunity and security that we enjoy today, and frankly, sometimes too often take for granted. We have a stewardship obligation to maintain these blessings, and all of us in the West, all of us together, are facing real challenges today that we must acknowledge and confront, and we do that best together. Across the pond, Congress and the Trump administration have been working very hard. We're trying to usher in a new golden age for our country, as we say. We're marshaling every resource we have to make America safer and stronger and more prosperous than ever before. And I'm very bullish on the prospects of doing that. We must do this because we know those hostile to the West and to our shared values are engaging in increasingly sophisticated forms of subversion and espionage. We see China, Russia, and Iran grow more aggressive and emboldened as they intensify their efforts to exert economic, political, and military influence around the world. We see a callous disregard for basic human rights, new provocations, and even the theft of intellectual property on a scale like we have never seen before. Clearly, President Trump is taking seriously the modern and dynamic threats that China and Russia pose to our global security, especially in focus the last few days as it relates to the Arctic. And while we can have thoughtful debate among our friends about how best to counter these threats, we all certainly agree they must be countered. We ignore these threats at our peril. And I want to hasten to express our gratitude to the UK and to all of you for joining us in some of our most recent actions to deter these hostile regimes, including the recent seizure of a black market vessel seeking to circumvent oil sanctions. That was a big help to us. That kind of open dialogue and partnership is a great example of how we can work together to ensure our collective defense around the world. It is an objective and obvious truth that a strong America is good for the entire world, and a strong UK is as well. At the same time, it's also obvious that we have to take care of our own houses, so to speak, before we take care of the neighborhood. And let's be honest, among friends here, in both of our nations, there is a need today to fortify our houses against internal challenges as well. In the West, if we make an honest assessment, we must acknowledge that our long-term prosperity and security are currently being undermined by, let's call it a crisis of self-doubt. It's been developing now for years. Elite institutions today tell the young and impressionable that our story is one of oppression and hypocrisy and failure. Our brightest minds are too often taught to view our history only through the lens of its sins. And we see the work of international organizations and transnational bodies hinder the very spirit of creativity and industriousness and daring that our nations were built upon. We have faced this in America just as you have here. A truly menacing skepticism towards history and our national institutions. And it's even come to the point where even great heroes like Sir Winston Churchill are questioned for their legacy. What has taken hold is a mindset that defines itself not by what it loves and seeks to preserve, but instead by what it condemns and seeks to tear down. And this growing disaffection we see, particularly among our younger citizens, is a serious threat to the health of both our nations. If the next generation is never exposed to the deeper wisdom of the Western world, or the enduring tradition of the British Parliament, or the genius of America's model of Republican self-government, then why would they feel any obligation to defend or preserve them? Fortunately, history teaches us an important lesson. Just over half a century after American independence, our country faced a moment of reckoning. It was 1838, and for the first time in our short history, America's founding fathers, the men who had led us through the turbulent years of our young nation, were no longer there to guide us. A growing disregard for the rule of law had taken hold at that time, and the cries of mob rule threatened every part of our country. A young legislator at that time, concerned by what he saw as America's deteriorating regard for its past, charged his countrymen with an important choice. Would they uphold their duty and preserve the blessings for which their fathers pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor? Or would they continue on the path of decline and self-destruction? The answer was simple, he said. This experiment in liberty could not survive unless the principles enshrined in the Declaration and institutionalized in our Constitution became their shared civic faith. That rising statement, he was just 28 years old at the time, would one day become president, and he would be called to confront the greatest stress test of the American experiment yet. His likeness stands just a few feet away from here, where we're gathered today, watching over Parliament Square. Abraham Lincoln, of course, wisely understood that the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation is the philosophy of government in the next. He knew that our national renewal would not come from repudiating our past, but rather from renewing and recommitting to our best principles, to appealing to the better angels of our nature. The struggle of Lincoln's time shows us that though America may be 250 years old, the question of how best to steward this grand experiment has always been with us. And age-old questions require age-old wisdom. In the West today, we see faith in our foundations and our shared inheritance weakening. And what we have to do is channel the wisdom of our predecessors to chart our own renewal. So what does renewal require? Just a few things. Well, first, it requires remembrance. This is a biblical admonition, in fact. We're to remember our blessings and from where we came. And the great British philosopher G.K. Chesterton warned, every high civilization decays by forgetting obvious things. Things like the dignity of the individual, the stabilizing role of the family, the human yearning for meaning and purpose, and the indispensable relationship between freedom and virtue. In short, we have to remember our foundations, and we have to describe what they are, because the generation behind us seems not to understand this. As Chesterton observed, America was founded on a creed that was set forth, he said, with dogmatic and theological lucidity in the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That profound acknowledgement of obvious and undeniable truth shook the foundations of Western democracy, and with it, the course of human history. Our founders recognized that all of us are made in the image of God, and because of that, every single person has inestimable dignity and value. And our value is not related in any way to the color of our skin or what town or village we hail from, what our talents are, etc. Our value is inherent because it is given to us by our Creator. We built an entire nation upon that premise. And just as our citizens are endowed with God-given and unalienable rights, all nations and all people should adhere to the obvious laws of nature and of nature's God, as our documents say. In his farewell address, the father of our country, George Washington, gave all of his advice that echoes down through his countrymen, even today, and echoes down through the generations in reminding us how we would keep this republic, how we would keep this grand experiment in self-government. And he said famously, of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. And John Adams was our second president, And he said famously, our Constitution is made only for a moral and religious people, government of any other. The late Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher put it even more simply. Freedom, she said, will destroy itself if it has no purpose. Lady Thatcher, just like our founders, understood that free societies that lacked a shared moral and civic foundation inevitably turn elsewhere to compensate. And that reminds us of another important lesson from history. A healthy renewal requires the participation and stewardship of each successive generation. Here, too, the example of the American Revolution proves so instructive. Our founders didn't seek to build a new nation on pure abstraction or mere ideology, nor did they abandon the brilliance of the British tradition, even if they opposed the empire itself. Instead, they drew on the joint inheritance of the English-speaking world, an inheritance rooted in the wisdom of classical thinkers, asserted in the Magna Carta, embraced in common law in the writings of John Locke, and articulated in the Bill of Rights of 1689. These principles found, in the words of Sir Winston Churchill, their most famous expression in the American Declaration of Independence. For Americans, our independence is not a rebuke of our British roots, but rather a renewal of what is best, the best of what Britain had to offer the world. If renewal requires remembrance and stewardship, it also requires responsible citizens. Strong institutions are essential, of course, but when people are taught that their lives are determined by systems and structures, responsibility quickly disappears, and with it, their purpose and their meaning. In both of our nations, we have too many people today on the sidelines, particularly younger generations. We should want our citizens involved, gainfully employed, and contributing to their communities, of course. Stable and thriving societies need families that raise children. They need churches and communities that form character, and patriotic men and women dedicated to leaving their country better than they found it. The simple truth is that freedom cannot survive if we outsource our responsibility as citizens. And this is a fact that remains true at a national level. We cannot fail in our responsibility to protect our people and their security. Amongst our allies, we see the UK and Europe stepping up as faithful partners here, and I want to declare that today. Whether it's NATO's nation's historic commitment to raise their investment in defense, which we applaud, or the AUKUS alliance deepening its cooperation in submarines and undersea defense, our partnership is proving that nations can prioritize their individual interests responsibly and at the same time make strides towards strengthening alliances and preserving the freedom and sovereignty of our nation states. And our current U.S. ambassador to the UK, Warren Stevens, who sits here up here with me today, said it recently very well. He said, America first does not mean and will never mean America alone. Finally, renewal takes courage. From the defeat of Napoleon to the heroic resistance to the Blitz, to the bravery of our soldiers in the liberation of Western Europe, the British people have given the world some of the greatest demonstrations of courage in human history. You are the heirs of Burke and Locke and Smith, the home of Shakespeare, the cradle of free speech. You are the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution and the nation that helped end the slave trade. And from these shores, you set sail to pioneer a new world built on British custom, British fortitude, and British law. Together, we, all of us, are the legacy of those ancient ancestors who came before us. Their courage is part of who we are, and we do well to remember that. Today, it takes our courage, clarity, and conviction to defend truth, just as our ancestors did. And it means being able to say that some things are true and good and enduring, and others are not. And to call evil and madness what it is. It means repairing what we see in clear disrepair, from restoring, for example, secure borders that protect from the real and measurable harms of mass uncontrolled migration, to pushing back on policies that erode our citizens' most basic liberties, especially the fundamental freedoms of speech and conscience. History teaches us we can never go down the road of censoring and silencing unpopular opinions because liberty is kept alive in the free marketplace of ideas. History further teaches us that the best solution to the problem of free speech is always more speech. And those being unjustly persecuted for exercising those freedoms, such as Jimmy Lai, the British national being held in Hong Kong, must be defended. And the U.S. stands with the U.K. as you work to free him. As we chart our renewal, America has no intention of walking alone. In fact, to do so would be self-defeating. More than ever before, we need the British people to be great and proud and patriotic, and you are. To work in close concert with us as partners and friends, and to defend the security of the Western world. That means secure borders. It means, obviously, serious investments in our shared defense and maintaining strategic strongholds around the world. And we will figure this out together. But again, the surest way that we protect this special relationship long-term is by renewing and recommitting to our foundational principles. As Churchill taught us, the strongest alliances are between kindred countries of kindred principles. What has always set us apart from the rest of the world, our commitment to liberty, our pursuit of excellence, our desire to put faith and family at the center of our lives, these are things that distinguish the free world from regimes that trample on the most basic principles of democracy and human dignity. While the West is not without its flaws, our greatest strength has always been our faith in human progress and our capacity for self-correction. Strong and lethal militaries matter, robust and thriving economies matter, but they mean little if we forget what we're fighting for. Churchill understood that the fate of the West would ultimately be decided not on the battlefield, but in the hearts and minds and souls of its people. And Ronald Reagan saw this a generation later. When he came to Parliament at the height of the Cold War, the first U.S. president ever to do so, his message was clear. He said the free world would prevail against the scourge of communism only if it recovered its confidence and resolve in itself. And today, I believe we stand at a similar moment. Together, our strength is real, and the fate of the free world rests on our will to defend and preserve it. Today, ultimately, our renewal depends on whether we, as leaders and citizens, equip the next generation, whether we arm them with the confidence to articulate the ideals of the West and the will to defend them, not to shrink into national reluctance, but to stand strong in national pride. Because our countries really do have an unparalleled heritage of achieving good and advancing mankind, both individually and in this trusted partnership. Thankfully, our special relationship has always proven much more powerful and enduring than the enemies we face. Together, we represent a common history and heritage, and the greatest, most free, most prosperous, most successful, and benevolent civilization the world has ever known. And it will endure only as long as we reject, decline, and recommit to our foundations. I'll leave you with the thought of Ronald Reagan one more. He said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on. And just like all things, great civilizations don't defy the laws of gravity. They rise and fall with the individual actions of each individual generation. So today, my friends, we have great reason for hope. Today, I see the UK with renewed sovereignty and self-determination. I see our European allies with an advantage over our adversaries in economic power, and most importantly, in spirit. I see younger generations rejecting the indulgence of self-interest and embracing pursuits of greater importance and higher purpose. And I see those who cherish the lessons of Churchill and Lincoln, who are ready to offer this age heroes of their own. With the right choices and the right leadership, we can chart our renewal, and we can seize the great moment together if we truly seek it and fight for it. Thank you again for this profound honor. God bless you all. God bless the United Kingdom, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
So that was the US Speaker. Very persuasive man, I'd say, Megan.
Yeah, I mean, an extremely mature politician, Mike Johnson speaking there, very historically rich speech talking about the philosophical foundations of America and the West. I'd be tempted to say not many British politicians can give an address like that.
Didn't mention the Chagos Islands.
He did not mention the Chagos Islands. However, he did say that his mission here was to encourage our friends and calm the waters. Well, we certainly need some of that.
Well, let's bring back Robert Midgley, who's still there from Friends of the Overseas British Territories. Robert, you said earlier that you think this is an American veto by Trump, saying that what Starmer has done is wrong. Why are you so sure it is a veto?
It is a pleasure to receive such
Look,
kind remarks.
the President comes at the very top of the pecking order. We've been waiting for this for a very long time. But what I should say is what Speaker Johnson just pointed out was he didn't say Chagos by name, but he pointed to references such as protecting strategic strongholds around the world. So he made very clear points there about fortifying houses, defending against self-doubt. Remember, just before he came on, I was talking about the lawfare that we've been enduring against the Chagos Islands for the past 20 years. And he made note to the transnational organizations that are waging lawfare. So there's lots of references in there that are about the Chagos Islands very, very clearly without saying it out loud.
Now, Trump is, of course, the man of the moment. We've seen enormous turmoil just in the past 24, 48 hours about Trump's intentions towards Greenland. Lots of European former allies up in arms about what the president actually intends. All we've had so far is one post on social media. There are no guarantees that Trump will follow through with his latest stance on Chagos.
He doesn't need to now. He has said what his views are, which we've been asking for so long. He has said what he thinks, and that is going to change opinions. Don't forget, this goes back into the Commons later today for ping pong. And so this will be a very pivotal moment now where people are waking up to say, actually, there is no reason to hand over that £47 billion to Mauritius. Actually, there's no reason to be putting on this lease. There's no reason to be going against self-determination of the Chagosians. There's no reason to be doing any of this stuff. And he has said that very clearly, that there's no reason to give away the Chagos Islands whatsoever now.
And Robert, very briefly, because we're under pressure of time, explain very succinctly, in your view, why it is so important that this deal, I would call it the surrender deal, is cancelled.
Look, this deal represents failure of so many factions, and this is security going into the future. Do not forget the Chagos Islands is just by the South China Sea. It guards Western security. It houses all of those bombers. It houses GCHQ wires, MI6 wires, and this is a real guarantor of Western security. And if we lose that in 100 years' time, we don't know what the world is going to be like in 100 years' time, but it could be very similar to what it is now, which is...
Because that's when the 99-year lease runs out. That's what you're referring to on...
Yes, this is down to 99 years. So we don't know what will happen in 99 years, but at the moment, China is all over every single ocean around the world, but in particular, it's looking at the South Indian Ocean to build on East Africa.
Thank you so much for that contribution. Now, we've now got pictures of Prince Harry arriving at day 2 of his court hearing. This is, of course, as an action against the Daily Mail, not just Prince Harry, but a number of other celebrities as well. We're expecting him to speak on Thursday, giving evidence in that court case. Of course, that will be of huge interest, no doubt. And Cameron Walker will be there, covering it all for GB News, so do tune in for that. Well, let's come back now to the studio, because we've got our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, here with us. Catherine, we've just heard this lengthy address by the Speaker of the American Congress, the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, to our UK Parliament. Fascinating speech, all about the special relationship between our two countries, our shared history, our shared philosophy, our shared culture. And yet he comes at a time when actually that relationship has never been more fractured.
Yes, absolutely. We heard he wants to calm the waters, the language very emollient, stressing our shared history, all the things that we have in common. And we heard the Prime Minister yesterday at the press conference calling for calm discussion between allies. That's what Mike Johnson, the Speaker, says he wants too. But meanwhile, in a parallel universe, Donald Trump doesn't seem to have got that memo, because Donald Trump is not talking in that way at all. If Europe wasn't in enough trouble over his comments that he was going to take Greenland the easy way or the hard way, he set off another grenade just before he got onto Air Force One this morning to head over to Davos, because he has flipped the US's position on the Chagos Islands, something that he said a few months ago he thought was going to work out very well. He has now said, shockingly, our brilliant, quote, NATO ally, the US, I think we can take it, these being sarcastic, is currently planning for no reason whatsoever, quote, to give away the Chagos Islands. He calls it an act of total weakness and an act of great stupidity. I think that Donald Trump probably was not across all of the details of this deal. Originally, the government has come back and basically they're doubling down on their position. They say they're never going to compromise on our national security. We acted because the base on Diego Garcia was under threat after court decisions.
But those court decisions were advisory.
The court decisions were advisory. The government's line is, we had to give the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. We have to pay tens of billions over 100 years because we've got to protect this vital US-UK military base that we're now going to lease back from Mauritius. And that if we hadn't done that, it would have become inoperable. Now, when we tried to get to the bottom of this months ago, they say, oh, well, national security, we can't tell you this, we can't tell you that, we can't tell you the other. But there are concerns from critics, opposition parties, Reform and the Conservatives, who are adamant that rather than helping our national security, this is actually a threat to it.
I mean, you're right, there are a lot of people who are going to be extremely relieved by this intervention, who greatly feared the security implications of giving up the Chagos Islands. But it's in sharp contrast to Donald Trump's intervention over Greenland, which is tearing NATO apart, is exactly what the Russians and the Chinese want. How do we make sense of these two very different interventions by Trump? One which seems to be in favour of Western security and the special relationship, and one which is blowing it apart.
Well, yes, but of course Donald Trump would say that he wants Greenland because that's the only way it can be secured. Europe will say that's what NATO is actually for. NATO, this agreement which has helped to keep us safe for decades, is if one is attacked, everybody comes to their defence, just as Danish troops did after September the 11th and died to help protect.
63 of them.
Exactly, to help protect America. Donald Trump, just getting on the plane a little bit earlier, saying nobody has done more to help NATO than me, and he's getting Europe to pay its way. Yes, that is happening rather too slowly, I think many people would say. But now many are seeing him as a threat to NATO, because if he hasn't ruled out military action, if he actually invaded Greenland, that's a NATO ally, would be the end of NATO, as Denmark has said. Now, Europe is saying it will not be bullied. This is very difficult.
NATO countries then have a duty to defend Greenland?
Of course, of course.
So then we're at war with the United States?
And meanwhile, Russia and China are looking on. They're thinking that this is absolutely brilliant, because Europe and America, who have stood together for decades at loggerheads, there's an opportunity for them. But of course, at the moment, we've got to be very careful with Donald Trump, because our defence is so closely entangled with American defence, our nuclear capability in particular. And also, we need their help in Ukraine. And at any moment, Donald Trump could turn around and say, well, you know, Russia, Ukraine, I think I'll let Europe deal with this. You're on your own.
Well, and it's almost as if he's making a joke out of the chaos that he's causing. We saw a picture on the screen there of Trump sitting around the Oval Office table with a map behind him where Canada and Greenland are both displayed as colonies of the US.
And very carefully staged.
Very carefully staged,
very carefully
indeed.
scripted.
Politics by meme.
Now, speaking on Trump's comments, a spokesman for the government here says the UK will never compromise on our national security. We acted because the base on Diego Garcia was under threat after court decisions undermined our position and presented it operating as intended in future.
This deal secures the operations of the joint US-UK base on Diego Garcia for generations, with robust provisions for keeping its unique capabilities intact and our adversaries out.
It has been publicly welcomed by the US, Australia and all other Five Eyes allies, as well as key international partners, including India, Japan and South Korea.
Very interesting. Well, I smell another U-turn.
Except yet again, they're saying international... It was not... It was an advisory... It was advisory by the International Court of Justice.
Yes.
Advisory.
And as you were saying earlier, India have already taken advantage of the deal by putting their own assets...
They have.
Or applying to anyway, so... Yeah. Well, let's move on now, because time is ticking on for your chance to win £85,000 in our biggest cash giveaway to date. Tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this year. Here are all the details you need.
There's only 2 weeks left to ensure you're in the draw to win our biggest cash prize so far. An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
Hi, I'm Jane from Manchester. I won £54,321 with the Great British Giveaway. It is real and it does happen to everyday people like myself. And that one text has just made my life 100% better.
But you have to hurry, as lines close on Friday the 30th of January. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 9th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, coming up next, the Chancellor is going to pitch Britain as a haven of stability in Davos later. Good luck with that.
We'll be going through that and more with my old sparring partner. That's Kevin Maguire from the Daily Mirror and our very own Piers Pottinger. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
So it comes down to money, doesn't it? Always follow the money, follow the money. And, you know, big tech is a big business. It is a very, very powerful industry. And it's pulled a blinder because it has convinced government and schools, teaching unions, you know, the individual local authorities that are responsible for procurement. It has convinced everyone that tech is either not harmful in the case perhaps of social media and smartphones, or actually beneficial. And it's a lie. I mean, it's a complete lie. The evidence is there. It is harmful.
There are plenty of examples in society where there are things that we know that are harmful to children, or that they may come with risks and benefits associated with them. Let's say contact sports, for example. Let's say giving them junk food. But we still give parents the right to make that decision because we believe in the rights of parental responsibility over state intervention in those areas. What makes those areas different to the risks and benefits associated with digital use for kids?
Yeah, I mean, look, absolutely. And I, as Rennie knows, I'm about as libertarian as one gets, certainly for adults. I do think when the intersection of individual choice and freedom with child welfare and child safety is rather different. And I think there are many examples of areas where a problem is too big for individual parents to solve. I mean, you've mentioned contact sports, and I think that's a really good example because, of course, there we all have the choice as parents whether our children should or shouldn't engage in contact sports. But phones are rather different. I mean, certainly smartphones, and I think that, you do have a distinction with phones versus edtech. It is literally mandated by schools, and there is no legal right for parents to opt out. So there is no choice.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's nearly 10:20 and you're watching live with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
We have got the fabulous Piers Postinger with us, and guess who else is here? Kevin Maguire.
Can I be fabulous as well?
No, we're not fabulous.
You haven't said anything yet.
Kevin, they know you work for the Mirror, so you can't possibly be fabulous. Kevin and I have been sparring for years and years and years, and we did used to spar on Good Morning Britain, but that is no longer anymore. So you are now going to become a regular fixture on here.
Yeah, if you keep inviting me, I'll come along.
We will. First time you've met Miriam Cates. Now, can I ask you to begin with, has Keir Starmer, who I know you know much better than us, and you are a supporter of Labour, but as opposed to me, Kevin, has he made a complete horlicks of this from beginning to end? Wasn't it Churchill who said, appeasers hope the crocodile eats them last if you appease? Because he's appeased Trump again and again and again, and now Chagos has blown up in his face, Greenland has blown up in his face.
Yeah, I'm not a Labour Party member, but I think the Labour government was better than the Alternatives. It worked to an extent, right? Because, for instance, he shielded Britain from the worst of Trump's tariffs, which are an economic attack on our country, damages the US as well. But I think it might have run its course now, and it may be the moment to break with him completely, because, of course, there's the issue of Greenland. And, I mean, what kind of unhinged person would say, if I don't get a peace prize, I'm going to go after war? And then he's backed the Chagos deal.
He did.
They were backing it, and now he's just turned around.
And that cosy chat in the White House.
That's right. And he's turned around completely because he can't get Greenland. He says, well, he can't give away the Chagos Islands or surrender, as Nigel Farage.
So is that the bill's back in the Commons later? Do they now have to give it up?
I think it's a nightmare for Starmer and the government, because they had a very reasoned case. The US Chiefs of Staff backed it, as a Tory defence minister said they
Kevin,
would.
it was surrender.
The talks were going through the talks were going through with the Conservative government, and they'll come into fruition with Labour. It's not a surrender. There's an international court judgment.
It's an advisory judgment. It's advisory.
It's an advisory because if Mauritius pushed it further, they would have got the judgment in their favour. So actually, it's $100 million a year you wouldn't want to spend on it, but it was the right thing to do, and Trump backed it. But when he turns on you like this, and his toys are out...
What do they do in the Commons? Before we bring Piers in, what do they do in the Commons?
I think they'll try and continue pushing ahead with it and saying he's completely wrong, we're right. But, publicly, you've got a much bigger battle on your hands now.
But don't forget, Donald Trump has actually got a Peace Prize, and it was from FIFA. Which, of course, that well-known organisation for handing out peace prizes. That sums up the sheer lunacy of what's going on at the moment. The one thing I do feel certain, though, is that the 56,000 people of Greenland are safe, and they don't need to worry about the future, because I'm sure this will be resolved, as quite often happens with Trump. He causes this chaos, and eventually wisdom prevails and things get sorted out.
What is it that the FT called it? Taco never goes ahead with it or something?
Although he does occasionally. I mean, that's a problem. You mustn't forget there are 10% tariffs on our exports into the US, so pushing up the price of cars, goods, services.
I think the people of Aberdeenshire should be the most worried, because he could go for Scotland next.
Yeah.
But seriously, Starmer's disaster trade deals that he trumpets everywhere. Sorry, trumpets. Starmer talks them up, but then they don't happen. The biggest one being when Trump visited, there was a $30 billion tech deal, which has been put on pause.
That was during the state visit.
Now, that's on pause. Now, why? That's an interesting expression. It means it's not happening. Now, Starmer's in a very weak position. He had this ludicrous press conference yesterday where he basically said, stay calm, everyone. I don't know what to do.
With the EU.
And I don't think the EU will do this. And by the way, the tariffs are not on the EU. They're on individual European countries. Italy is not in there. Spain is not in there. It's not an EU.
No, it's the northwestern Protestant liberal countries.
It's seven countries: France and Germany, Denmark, among them. Quite how you put tariffs on their goods and not other goods coming through the EU, I don't know. Again, because of course goods leave different ports. But the problem with Trump is he's not a deal maker; he's a deal breaker. You can't trust him. He's unhinged. He's absolutely deranged now.
You said we should break with him, and there's an argument for that. He's increasingly erratic. Potentially, the threats over Greenland could break up NATO. I mean, Putin must be laughing. But isn't the truth that we cannot break from the US? Not only are we completely dependent on them militarily, but also huge swathes of our economy is owned by the US. 2 million Brits work directly for US companies. There's nothing we can do. We're a vassal state.
Yeah, even the independent nuclear deterrent relies on US missiles.
How can we break with
but you won't break with the businesses. Because those businesses still want to make money in Britain. They're not employing people in Britain as philanthropists. They're making money. And if you break with Trump and you say, you put tariffs on us, we will put tariffs on you, that's how you deal with a bully. That's how you deal with a bully. And the US business will rise up against it.
The thing that interests me, Kevin's hit upon a point here. What does US business and what do the US people think of what's going on in Greenland? We haven't heard any of this.
Well, the polling shows that only 4% of US citizens would support military action. Only 70% support the acquisition.
But I'm interested politically for this, Kevin, because you talk to Labour people all the time. How out on a limb now is Starmer with his own side in the way he's sucked up to Starmer?
A long way.
And it's damaging his own standing in the Labour Party, and they'll see what's happened with Chagos there and think, what the hell? We haven't even got this sorted.
It definitely is. It's somewhere he could argue he did actually put country before party, because it would have been more popular in the Labour Party if he'd have been full out, all guns blazing against Trump. He didn't do that. So he's been outflanked on the left by Zach Belansky, the very populist Green Party leader, and even Ed Davey of the Liberal Democrats, who is possibly Britain's chief Trump tormentor now. It worked on the tariffs. He's kind of kept Trump in the game to some extent with Zelensky and Ukraine, but you can see now Trump has lost it completely. And I think it's a moment, if you break with Trump, you can also have a nice, thick, red dividing line with the Conservatives, Kemi Badenoch, who, never forget her first Prime Minister's questions, wanted Trump to address both houses of Parliament on the state visit, and also with Nigel Farage, who is having to criticise Trump now, but he's always played the card. He's my mate. He always likes to see me.
Isn't it interesting that Trump is going to Davos?
I was just going to ask about
isn't.
That. And so
Starmer's sent Rachel Reeves, God help us, and she's going to say that Britain's a wonderful country to invest in. I wonder, which planet is she actually on? This is a disastrous country to invest in at the moment.
Hang on. You can run Britain down like that. Where is the great country to invest in? Of course, there's lots of problems in a global economy and domestic problems, but we're still one of the top half dozen economies in the world. And that's not that's what I say. The economy is doing brilliantly.
The long-term
now.
projections that have just been produced are very, very negative about our prospects. And in fact, by any economic measure, at the moment, if you were an overseas investor, this is about the last place you'd invest. Because of the government rules that are totally anti-British business.
At the moment, we've got Ursula von der Leyen, the dull leader of the European Commission, the most irritating woman. But she is a very powerful figure, unelected, of course, in the unelected, undemocratic European Commission, which you adore, Kevin Maguire. But isn't this an occasion when actually...
the powers with the Council of Ministers...
Isn't the case when Never Hear Keir should actually go to Davos?
No. Now,
because he could talk to the president.
Yeah, but he can't win here. You'd criticise him if he went. You'd say it was a junket in a ski resort in Switzerland.
He doesn't go. 2 hours.
And you criticise him if he doesn't go. If there's going to be a meeting with Trump and Macron, the German leader, and others are going to be there, he can hop on a plane very quickly and be there. Now, it might look panic and an emergency, but that's the way to do it. I'm glad he's not going to this.
But he told us before the election he's more comfortable in Davos than Westminster.
Yeah, it's a junket. It is a junket.
Yeah, well, it is a junket, and I must agree with Kevin reluctantly. No, I don't. But I mean, it is a junket, and normally it's a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
And it's very unusual for an American president to turn up there. Don't forget, also, Davos isn't some sort of United Nations organisation. It's a profit-making business enterprise.
Yeah.
It's a money-making, ridiculous event, really, for the most part. Very little gets achieved.
Should Starmer be there this time?
Well, I think with Trump being there, he should. The problem is Starmer doesn't actually know what to say to Trump. Well, he doesn't know what to do.
That's part of the problem.
And he basically said that yesterday. He said, I've spoken to him, said we don't like this. And that's it.
And Nigel Farage is going to be there, Kevin. And what if Nigel Farage manages to pull off a deal where Trump says, OK, the tariffs are down? Then Farage gets the credit? Prime Minister...
Well, there's a lot of ifs, but yes, he would if that happened, but I can't see it unless Farage says you can have Greenland. It's not mine to give, but you can have it. Here it is.
Well, I think there could be other announcements from Trump at Davos about things completely unconnected to all we've been talking about, just to throw yet again everyone into a mad panic. He uses these crazy announcements that sound crazy initially, and sometimes there's a bit of logic behind them, but he uses them to throw everyone's while he's doing something else. It's a kind of tactic he uses, and he's not going to Davos without something up his sleeve to announce that's going to rattle everyone's cage.
He's gone for a platform, and he'll suck up all the oxygen, and he loves the publicity. But you turn up, it's like going after the school bully and watching him steal your dinner money.
The Davos might give him a peace prize.
The only leaders who have dealt with him well, Mark Carney in Canada saw him off, and I'm afraid to say Xi Jinping in China, because their economy is so big and they have so many rare earth metals, which of course Trump wants from Greenland as the ice caps melt. He managed to force Trump to...
He might go on to Russia and get a peace prize, and then he can peace off.
Yeah, he could.
We've only got a minute. Why is Starmer doing a 14th, or is it 15th, or is it 16th U-turn on social media?
Well, it's not a full U-turn yet. Because it's a
consultation.
It's a consultation. I think it's because they brought in a lot of controls, which the Online Safety Act, which I know Reform have attacked and say they would repeal. There's a lot of controls you can bring in there now. There's age verification. I think it's because there's a public groundswell at the moment in favour of banning...
And the Tories got the idea first?
Banning...
Some Tories.
No.
Yeah. This one said it 3 years ago.
2 years ago. And I was laughed at
Badenoch was also late to the party.
She was there quicker than Starmer.
I'm not sure I support it. I've got questions about whether you ban completely or you restrict what could be seen on social media for younger people, because they're going to find elsewhere.
I mean, they're consulting. This won't happen for a long time.
Whereas if you just raise an age limit, like you have an age limit for alcohol or cigarettes, it's clean cut and nobody's then interfering in the content. But yes.
But enforcing it is going to be the question. How do you actually enforce it?
But I just think he wants a domestic policy that he can talk about, which actually...
Well, it's the Labour backbenchers that are pushing it, but we'll see.
We're going to have to leave it there. We'll be back in an hour.
It's time now for our 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you. The top stories this hour. Donald Trump says Britain's great stupidity of ceding the Chagos Islands to Mauritius is another in a very long line of national security reasons why Greenland has to be acquired. He said that on his Truth Social platform. The US president saying last night he was 100% committed to hitting the UK and European allies with tariffs over their opposition to his plan to annex Greenland. The water industry is set for a once-in-a-generation set of reforms, the government says, as it proposes new legislation to overhaul the system. The rate of UK unemployment remained unchanged at 5.1% in the 3 months to November, the Office for National Statistics says. Meanwhile, UK wage growth has fallen back once again as official figures reveal deepening jobs woes in the retail and the hospitality sectors. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more news from me in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Still ahead on Britain's Newsroom, find out about the explosive comments that Brooklyn Beckham has made about his parents, who are yet to respond. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Morning, welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Generally, things a bit brighter out there today. Still a bit of mist and fog around and quite a bit of cloud, but many areas will be dry. The main exception to that in the far southwest. West Wales, southwest England, already seeing some outbreaks of rain, and the wind's really picking up here, getting very gusty indeed. There is a Met Office yellow warning in place, 40-50 mile an hour gusts, perhaps even 60 to 65 over hills. We'll see some of that wet and windy weather extending across Northern Ireland, 1 or 2 showers in eastern England, but a good part of England and Scotland will stay dry. As I mentioned, a bit brighter than yesterday. Temperature about average, but feeling a lot colder with the wind and the rain in the southwest. A pretty grim end to the day for much of Wales and southwest England. Some heavy bursts of rain and still very lively gusts. Further east, generally still dry and fine at this stage, but the rain will be creeping its way towards the Midlands during the evening rush hour. At the same time, it should start to ease a little bit in Northern Ireland. We'll see some outbreaks of rain just filtering into southwest Scotland. A few showers across the Northern Isles perhaps, but a good part of Scotland also dry through this evening's rush hour. Now, the breeze will be picking up, coming in from the North Sea. That's going to be a feature of the weather over the next few days. The rain will extend, as I mentioned, across the Midlands, then into parts of northern England and up across Scotland, with a few showers following on behind. With enough wind, that'll help to stop any mist and fog forming, except maybe over the higher routes, and help to keep the temperatures up above freezing as well. For tomorrow, though, many places will see outbreaks of rain. We start pretty wet across a good part of Scotland, and there's those winds feeding in the heavy rain here. That could cause some issues over the next few days. The second half of the week looks very wet, so we have another Met Office yellow warning in place, and then a zone of wet weather marches northwards across all other areas. So there'll be a spell of rain for all of us at some point tomorrow, getting quite windy in places as well. Temperatures, again, close to average, 7 to 10 Celsius.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M73 northbound, the junction to a slip road is closed for essential roadworks. In Durham, the A19 southbound between the A1018 and the A182 has a collision with one lane closed, causing 15-minute delays, clearing by 11 this morning. Also on the M27 westbound exit slip at Junction 5, a broken down vehicle is blocking one lane, with normal conditions expected by 10:30 this morning. And on the trains, Gatwick Express services are disrupted between Gatwick Airport and Purley, and Great Western Railway has road transport replacing trains between Liskeard and Loo. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. And a major new study has suggested that the biggest fault lines in British politics aren't age or income, but education.
I'm not sure this is the new idea, actually. Researchers say attitudes to immigration and support for right-wing parties, oh, here we go, are far more divided between graduates and non-graduates in the UK than almost any other group.
Yeah.
So basically, this is trying to say in short form, people who are less well-educated are more likely to be right-wing and anti and less keen on migration.
Alternatively, you could say that the more education you receive, the more common sense you lose. That would be another interpretation.
Exactly.
But I think what's
it's an
interesting
old
about
canard, isn't it?
It is. I think what's interesting about this study, though, is that in the US, it's ethnicity and religion that is more determinant of your voting patterns, whereas they're saying in the UK it's actually more to do with the level of education you receive. But
years ago they'd have said class, but that's all gone now.
Yes,
although it's broken down.
Is the new middle class, the graduate class, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think what it draws attention to is two things. Firstly, on mass immigration, people who have achieved a high level of education and perhaps are earning high salaries or living in London aren't as badly affected by mass immigration as people in the regions who are competing for jobs, who are finding house prices difficult.
And people would also say, and of course their au pairs are often
Exactly, they
immigrants.
get cheap coffee and cheap childcare.
Yeah.
But alternatively, you could say that universities have become so left-wing that they're actually indoctrinating people against common sense positions.
The
Perhaps
home of
that's why.
cancel culture.
Exactly.
Our university establishment.
So I don't think it's
I'm
as simple as make
Let's
it
talk to the senior fellow of the New Culture Forum, Dr. Philip Kisley. Dr. Philip, good morning to you.
Hi, both. It's great to see you.
You too.
Sum up for us what this research says and whether you agree with it.
Yes, I do agree with it very much. I think it's good. It's very welcome. I think it's a sample size of about 2,000, which isn't massive, but I think it's rigorous, which is good. The thing is, it's, as Miriam has just said, it's what we already know. We know that the university sector, certainly over the last 10 or 20 years, has become the indoctrination centre for young people, really. The curriculum is based, unbelievably, but it's true, the curriculum is based in a combination of Marxism and postmodernism, which is all about breaching boundaries. So if you are a member of staff, for example, who has philosophical conservative views or just general small c conservative views, you're fairly patriotic, for example, it's going to be very difficult for you to exist in a university and work in a university, because something like patriotism or something like borders, all of this is about breaching borders, and it's on every level. So we're talking about national borders here and patriotism and possibly sending illegal immigrants back. That's not the most radical position in the world, right? Most people think that. But this is just terrible. If you uttered that in a university, it would be terrible. But it translates into other things as well. Okay, so we've seen this with gender. We had the big gender debate over the last few years about breaching borders there. And you know, it's not just about male and female. It's also about adults and children as well. So a lot of this stuff is not just distasteful. It's very dangerous. But what they tend to do is take the politics out of this and present it to students in terms of ethics. It's good, you're good and they're bad. This is a Manichaean struggle between good and bad. And the people who want people into the country, who are international, who are outward facing, are not only good, but they're also clever. And the other people are dumb and bad. And I'm not even simplifying there. It really is that simple in many of these places, especially, unfortunately, the Russell Group.
Do you think, Philip, it is about level of education, or do you think there's also an element of mobility? So I'm sure you're familiar with the work of the writer David Goodhart, who came up with this idea of anywheres or somewheres, people who prefer to live in a particular place. They are tied to a region, to a village, to a town, to their family, and the anywheres who are happy anywhere in the world as long as they have status and income. Do you think there's a bit of that at play here too?
Oh, I think that's massively important, okay? But again, that comes down to a kind of currency, doesn't it? A social currency. So the anywheres who tend to be educated at university see themselves as far better, okay, much cleverer, have much more cultural currency than the somewheres. And we saw that played out really poisonously a few years ago in the Brexit debate, didn't we? So what we have is not only a sense of us and them, and I would see myself very much as a somewhere, but also a sense of contempt as well. There is a contempt for these people, and it is just good old-fashioned social snobbery. And we see that in the institutions. There is a sense that in any given classroom or seminar room or lecture theatre, you will see that cultural snobbery. This is what we're giving you. We're giving you all of this cultural cachet, because actually the degrees, the Mickey Mouse degrees in social sciences, in arts and humanities, unfortunately now, and particularly in performing arts, are not worth anything else. And that's, unfortunately, that's the unfortunate truth.
And just briefly on Brexit, I'm glad you mentioned it, because still to this day, if you talk to some of the great Remainers, the High Priest of Remain, people like Lord Mandelson, probably have somewhat discredited bigger now, they still say, oh, the people who voted for Brexit, they just didn't know what they were voting for. Whereas I think they knew exactly what they were voting for.
They did. They knew precisely what they were voting for. They just, actually, what they were voting for, and certainly what I voted for, was a very simple thing. It was the keys to my own front door. That isn't outrageous. That isn't outlandish. That isn't racist. That isn't far right. But there is this narrative that has taken hold, and it's particularly in the institutions. It's certainly in the universities, but it's also in the media, the heritage mainstream media, the BBC, and so on and so forth. You do not see working class people on the BBC anymore. You don't see any dramas, any comedies. It's literally all about the somewhere attributes, which is race, gender, and sexuality. Those are the new identities. And for me, the really important things when you talk about somewhere, you talk about place, don't you, and connection and family and the real meaning of community. Those are the really important things, but there's also something else as well, and that's class. I'm from a working class background, and I'm very proud to be from a working class background. I worked in universities for 25 years. I worked in Russell Group institutions for 25 years, and there were very, very few people like me. You know, this is what they say, don't they? I can't see people like me. No, there are lots of people like you. There aren't many people like me there at all, and that's the problem. What we need to do, the next government, whoever it is, if they are serious about tearing this stuff apart, they need to look at the universities and completely rewrite the curriculum and completely think a new version of thinking of who is in the lecture theatres, who's standing in front of those classrooms and seminar rooms. What are they saying? This needs to be really dealt with in a very deep and complex way.
Now, Dr. Philip, lots of people think that the expansion of higher education has gone far too far, that Blair's ambition to get 50% of young people going to university has completely backfired, fewer and fewer people able to get graduate jobs, that actually we should highly restrict numbers back down to, let's say, 10% or 20% of the population. Do you think that would have political consequences, following on from what you're saying?
Oh, I think it would. It would have huge implications on every level. But I think the really good thing for us, it would work on several levels. So, for example, the people who are going to university at the moment who shouldn't be there and who are spending a fortune and who are getting Mickey Mouse degrees and who are just going straight into unemployment, it would be much better for those people actually to go into trades, and we desperately need trades. They would be much richer. Okay, so I think there are real world consequences here. Okay, I think the political consequences, we're going to get political consequences for everything, because if we do want to shake things up, if we do want to change things, if we do want to save our country, then this is just one of several things, and we need to shake up the media, we need to shake up education, we need to shake up institution, and yes, there will be a political landslide underneath it.
Dr. Kisley, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for your contribution this morning. That's Dr. Philip Kisley, Senior Fellow of the New Culture Forum.
Really interesting. Now, President Trump has lashed out at Britain on Truth Social, describing the decision of this government to hand the Chagos Islands to Mauritius as a, quote, great stupidity.
Well, in contrast, President Donald Trump said this back in February. Take a listen.
Well, we're going to have some discussions about that very soon, and I have a feeling it's going to work out very well. They're talking about a very long-term, powerful lease, a very strong lease, about 140 years, actually. That's a long time, and I think we'll be inclined to go along with your country. Yeah.
Well, let's talk now to the Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch. Kemi Badenoch, good morning to you, Mrs Badenoch. Is Donald Trump right? The handing over, well, not handing over, paying Mauritius to take the Chagos Islands from us is an act of great stupidity. Is that right?
Well, unfortunately for the Prime Minister, Donald Trump is right on Chagos. There is no reason why we should be surrendering British territory, which we paid for back in the 60s, for no reason whatsoever. I have to emphasize that there's no reason for us to do this. It weakens our country. We've got a strategic military base there. The only people who benefit are China and Russia. And as you said, paying £35 billion for the privilege. This is something we've been talking about for the last 12 months. It is extraordinary that Starmer is doing it. The Conservative Party has opposed it every step of the way and will continue to do so.
But with respect, Mrs Badenoch, it was the Conservative Party that started the negotiations before the last election.
The Conservative Party had talks with Mauritius and we said no. We ended that conversation. We said we're not doing this. There's nothing wrong with having conversations. It wasn't a negotiation on how to give it away. They said they wanted to talk. We said, all right, let's talk. They said, can we have it? We said no. There's nothing wrong with having those sorts of conversations. The problem is that after we ended it, Labour picked it up, ran with it, not just giving it away, but paying £35 billion for the privilege. It is not in our national interest. That is a strategic military base. And the US are now realizing exactly what's going on. I had a conversation last night with the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and we had an extensive conversation about exactly what was going on. And I'm really pleased that after that conversation, President Trump has said what he did today. I think that Keir Starmer made a very silly decision to do that, and now he will be suffering the consequences.
Well, in this instance, President Trump certainly seems to have come to the rescue of our national interest, and yet just last night, his pronouncements on Greenland, potentially even the threat to use military force to invade it, is very much against the national interest of this country and of keeping NATO together. Do you think that Donald Trump and America are still a reliable ally for this country?
Well, what I've always said is that where other countries, including the US, do things that are good for British national interest, we agree. When they don't, we disagree. On Chagos, I think he said the right thing. On Greenland, completely disagree. This is one of we need to work together, not just across the aisle with Labour, but with other countries. What is important is that the people of Greenland decide their future. This is, the Chagosians wanted to stay under British rule. The people of Greenland do not like the decisions that are taking place. And I have urged President Trump to stop this. This is not going to be good for NATO or the strategic Western alliance.
How important do you regard still NATO to Britain and world order, Mrs Badenoch?
It's critical. It is critical for the British national interest. Britain is a strong country, but we cannot fight things alone. We cannot deal with all the problems by ourselves. Working with other partners who have shared interests is absolutely critical for the British. Sorry, the earpiece is falling out. Working with other countries is absolutely critical for British security.
Now let's move back to domestic issues now. We understand that you met with Conservative MPs last night in the wake of the defection of Robert Jenrick and more recently Andrew Rosendale to Reform, and that you spoke about the need to remain loyal and anybody who wanted to leave should leave. Do you not think that it'd be better to try and persuade those people who are considering defecting to come back into the Conservative fold rather than pushing them away?
Well, actually, that's not what the conversation was about. That is something that I said in the letter. The Conservative Party is going back to core principles, and I need people in my party who care about the national interest, not just their self-interest. And it is important that if people have other things that they want to do, then they go where they think that is best. I want a strong and united team, not just people hanging around because they're looking for the best party that's going to help them win the seat. That is self-interest. I am looking for people who want to fight for this country, who want to help your viewers, who want to bring down the cost of living, bring down energy bills. I want people who are going to be doing the right thing, helping us abolishing stamp duty, people who will do the work on how we leave the ECHR, not just say, let's leave. That is the most important thing.
But do you not think that actually politics works best when self-interest coincides with the national interest? If MPs fear that they're going to lose their seat to Labour, let's say, or the Liberal Democrats, they might think that they're serving the country much better if they join Reform and at least win the seat for the centre-right, rather than allowing it to go back to the left, which is what many people in your party and Reform would want to avoid.
Well, actually, I remember when people who were on the right of our party were defecting to Labour. Do you remember Natalie Elphick? She was a member of the ERG. She defected to Labour in the last Parliament. The point I'm making is that there are a lot of people who are jumping around because all they care about is winning. What we care about right now in the Conservative Party is what we're winning for, and that is delivering a better UK, working in the national interest. And I'm not going to resile from that. I cannot spend all my time running around asking people who don't want to stay to stay. If people do not want to stay in the Conservative Party because they want to jump around with polls, then they should go. That is not serious. We are a serious party. We are the only credible alternative to Labour. We're working for a stronger economy and a stronger country. If they want to spend time on psychodrama and gossip and messing around, they do not belong in the Conservative Party. This is not about left or right. This is about right or wrong. And I don't want people who are in the party for the wrong reasons hanging around.
So, psychodrama or not, there is a major drama coming up for you, Mrs Badenoch, and the Conservative Party. The local elections in May, even your most loyal supporters say it's going to be horrendous, difficult. How bad is it, and have you prepared your side for the scale of the defeat that you're expecting, probably at the hands of Reform?
Well, I didn't know that you could predict the future. I think we will find out about the local election results on local election day. What we're doing right now is showing people what our agenda is and fighting for every single vote. That is what I'm telling my team to go out and do. Who's going to run your local services best? Who is best for this country? Every time we have a press conference, we're talking about how we're going to make the country better. When Reform have a press conference, they're talking about who's jumping parties. I think your viewers can see who's actually working for local people and who's spending time on politics.
I'm going to make one prediction that you'll lose more seats than you gain in the May elections.
Well, I didn't know that you were in the business of psephology. What I'm doing right now is working for every vote.
All right, Mrs Badenoch, Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party, not being drawn, but my best attempt to get her to talk about the local elections in May. Find out why the government might soon ban social media for under 16s. We're going to the weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office. Here on GB News. Generally, things a bit brighter out there today. Still a bit of mist and fog around and quite a bit of cloud, but many areas will be dry. The main exception to that in the far southwest. West Wales, southwest England, already seeing some outbreaks of rain, and the wind's really picking up here, getting very gusty indeed. There is a Met Office yellow warning in place, 40, 50 mile an hour gusts, perhaps even 60 to 65 over hills. We'll see some of that wet and windy weather extending across Northern Ireland. One or two showers in eastern England, but a good part of England and Scotland will stay dry. As I mentioned, a bit brighter than yesterday. Temperatures about average, but feeling a lot colder with the wind and the rain in the southwest. A pretty grim end to the day for much of Wales and southwest England. Some heavy bursts of rain and still very lively gusts. Further east, generally still dry and fine at this stage, but the rain will be creeping its way towards the Midlands during the evening rush hour. At the same time, it should start to ease a little bit in Northern Ireland. We'll see some outbreaks of rain just filtering into southwest Scotland. A few showers across the Northern Isles perhaps, but a good part of Scotland also dry through this evening's rush hour. Now, the breeze will be picking up, coming in from the North Sea. That's going to be a feature of the weather over the next few days. The rain will extend, as I mentioned, across the Midlands, then into parts of northern England and up across Scotland, with a few showers following on behind. With enough wind, that'll help to stop any mist and fog forming, except maybe over the higher routes, and help to keep the temperatures up above freezing as well. For tomorrow, though, many places will see outbreaks of rain. We start pretty wet across a good part of Scotland, and there's those winds feeding in the heavy rain here. That could cause some issues over the next few days. The second half of the week looks very wet, so we have another Met Office yellow warning in place, and then a zone of wet weather marches northwards across all other areas. So there'll be a spell of rain for all of us at some point tomorrow, getting quite windy in places as well. Temperatures, again, close to average, 7 to 10 Celsius.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
A An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
Hi, I'm Jane. I won £54,321 with the Great British Giveaway. Oh, definitely please enter. It is real, and that one text has just made my life 100% better.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to stop. You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 11 o'clock on Tuesday, the 20th of January. We're live across the UK, Britain's newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Writing on Truth Social this morning, President Donald Trump has called the UK's decision to hand the Chagos Islands to Mauritius a great stupidity, despite saying this back in February.
I have a feeling it's going to work out very well. They're talking about a very long-term, powerful lease, a very strong lease, and I think we'll be inclined to go along with your country. Yeah.
And the US Speaker Mike Johnson told our very own Parliament this morning that despite the conflict over Greenland, he was here to use his words, calm the waters.
And of course, this comes as the US president has doubled down on taking over Greenland, claiming Denmark can't protect it. Meanwhile, our Prime Minister pleads with the EU not to start a trade war with America.
We have to have it. They have to have this done. They can't protect it. Denmark, they're wonderful people. And I know the leaders are very good people, but they don't even go there.
Well, end it like Beckham. Brooklyn Beckham says he doesn't want to reconcile with his parents, David and Victoria. He's called them controlling and manipulative in a frankly remarkable Instagram post. A family at war.
Yes, first dance hijacks, wedding dress U-turns, but are the claims in Brooklyn's bombshell statement all that they seem? I'll have the latest later in the show.
So I think it's the responsible thing to do to consult on all the different options available, from a ban on social media for the under-16s to things like curfews overnight to help kids with their sleep.
Well, will under-16s face social media restrictions? The government wants a social media blackout for under-16s and phone-free schools as they crack down on children's screen time. But does the consultation go far enough?
And another big day for the government. It's deadline day on whether to grant China permission for that new super embassy overlooking the Tower of London. 5 of our allies, including the United States, want us to reject the plans. Well, Kemi was unrepentant, pretty clear on Chagos, but also she was first on social media in terms of political leaders. She said...
I think that's probably true.
Well, she said it in an interview with me in the Daily Mail about 9 months ago, and she said it on this programme.
If we're going to be really pedantic, it was actually the STP, the Social Democratic Party. They have been on this from the start, but they are a very minor party.
They've got about 4 members and a dog.
Quite probably. Well, we're just hearing that the government has approved plans for that Chinese embassy. Speaker Mike Johnson saying this morning that it was a bad idea.
Well, that is a bad idea. Tell us what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'll have more on that breaking story that the government has approved plans for China's new embassy in London. But first, our top story. Donald Trump says Britain's great stupidity of ceding the Chagos Islands to Mauritius is another in a very long line of national security reasons why Greenland has to be acquired. He said that on his Truth Social platform today. Under the signed deal, the site of the base will be leased back to the UK for 99 years. Well, his comment comes after Mr. Trump said last night he was 100% committed to hitting the UK and European allies with tariffs over their opposition to his plan to annex Greenland. Danish soldiers landed there after the US president refused to rule out military action. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer has urged the EU not to hit back at Donald Trump or to retaliate to US threats of tariffs. The Prime Minister has called for calm in response to Trump's threats of a trade war. Sir Keir Starmer won't travel to Davos because there are lots of challenges on his time, one of his senior ministers has today said. Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, spoke to GB News this morning.
Where other countries, including the US, do things that are good for British national interest, we agree. When they don't, we disagree. On Chagos, I think he said the right thing. On Greenland, completely disagree. We need to work together, not just across the aisle with Labour, but with other countries. What is important is that the people of Greenland decide their future. This is, the Chagosians wanted to stay under British rule. The people of Greenland do not like the conversations that are taking place. And I have urged President Trump to stop this. This is not going to be good for NATO or the strategic Western alliance.
Environment spokesperson Tim Farron told GB News Donald Trump's plans to take Greenland are wrong.
Even if you are a person who would normally politically be favourable towards Donald Trump, surely this is the moment when you realise that the peace of the world is now being threatened by one man acting extremely foolishly. I mean, the reality is, yes, Greenland is significant militarily, strategically, and it belongs to a staunch NATO ally. America has troops on that island anyway, and the thought that Russia or China are about to nab it, and if they did, there wouldn't be a huge and unified NATO response, is completely for the birds.
Elsewhere, the rate of UK unemployment remained unchanged at 5.1% in the 3 months to November, the Office for National Statistics has said. Meanwhile, UK wage growth has fallen back once again as official figures reveal deepening jobs woes in the retail and the hospitality sectors. The ONS said average regular earnings growth fell to 4.5% in the 3 months to November, down from 4.6% in the previous 3 months and staying at the lowest since April of 2022. With consumer prices index inflation taken into account, wages were 0.9% higher. Work and Pensions Secretary Pat McFadden spoke to GB News.
We've got 500,000 more people in work compared to a year ago. That economic inactivity is at the lowest level it's been for almost 6 years. But of course there's more to do, and that's why we are pressing forward with our Youth Guarantee, which will offer training and subsidised work to several 100,000 young people, and also doing more to tackle the issue of long-term sickness in the labour market, through the expansion of our Work Well programme announced today.
The water industry is set for a once-in-a-generation set of reforms as the government proposes new legislation to overhaul the system. It says that nightmare situations such as taps running dry in Kent and Sussex this month would be avoided thanks to a new proactive system that would perform MOTs on water companies to preempt major failures. Ministers are set to unveil a series of reforms in Parliament today, which include abolishing the current system of overlapping regulators. Public confidence in the old way collapsed as sewage spills grew and pipes crumbled while water company bosses enjoyed ever bigger bonuses. Now, the second day of a case brought by Prince Harry and several others against the publisher of the Daily Mail has now begun at London's High Court today. Yesterday, the claimant's lawyer told the court that Associated Newspapers Limited used private investigators and blaggers to gather information unlawfully. The claimant's opening statement alleged that behaviour of journalists at the Mail Group wrecked the lives of so many. This is Prince Harry's third major court battle accusing newspaper groups of unlawful behaviour.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So, breaking news, the government has given the go-ahead to this controversial super Chinese embassy in the old Royal Mint building. In the studio with us is Lord Kempsall, Conservative peer. He's off to China next week. This is the timing, clearly, the Prime Minister. Conservative Party completely opposed to this. What do you make of this decision?
It's flabbergasting. And basically, Keir Starmer came in saying his priority was to serve the people in Britain, but all he's doing at the moment, it seems, from a variety of decisions, whether it's on the Chinese mega embassy or it's on Chagos, is he's serving up the best week ever for Xi Jinping and for Vladimir Putin.
So people are clear, what is the problem? Tell us about the cables which the underground chambers, the underground rooms in this embassy will be close to, the proximity of these underground cables. What's contained in these cables?
Well, Andrew, all across this area, which is just outside the City of London, there are vital data cables for financial information that enables trading in the city. And there are also sensitive communication cables that are very important to business and so on. I think the reality with this this piece of breaking news is that there's going to be a JR. So, you know, the local residents, exactly, the local residents are very upset with this decision, notwithstanding the political reaction. So even though the plans as they are have been approved, and remember that quite a good deal of those plans
redacted. Yeah, we never saw it.
Exactly. So the public haven't really seen the full details of the planning documents. There's going to be a judicial review. So I think this will have quite a long way to run yet.
Ross, there's no secret that the Chinese are engaged in espionage in the West, not least in London. But isn't the problem now that in the UK we are so beholden to the Chinese economically, for investments? I mean, look at, for example, Xingye, who bought British Steel. I mean, they threatened to withdraw their £1 billion investment if the government didn't approve this embassy, which just shows how closely linked China's economic ties are with the Chinese Communist Party. What can we do about it?
I think behind the whole impetus from the government is that Starmer knows he's desperate to get GDP growth up in the UK. And one of his strategies, he thinks, is to just have a very open economic relationship with China. I think that's how he's coming at this. He thinks that this is a shortcut to boosting growth. The reality is, though, at what cost? And I firmly think that the UK does need to have a relationship with China. I mean, notwithstanding anything else, 1 in 5 people in the world are Chinese. The Chinese government is a major player in world affairs, in multilateral organisations. But having a relationship with China is not the same thing as letting China exert its influence and do whatever it wants in the UK. That's not the way the UK should be acting. You know, as a patriotic government, the UK should be putting the UK's national interests first.
And Kemi Badenoch told us she spoke to the American speaker who's here. She spoke to him only last night. There was a dinner for him in Speaker's House, Mike Johnson, who made it clear the Americans are horrified, aghast, as are 4 or 5 other major allies, that this could go ahead because they think it's going to be used for Chinese spying.
I was speaking to a number of US sources yesterday who are very close to the administration, having a couple of calls last night, and I can tell you that perhaps even more so than Chagos, the US concern over the Chinese mega embassy is right at the top of the agenda in that relationship. And I think Starmer is really risking overall the solidity of the US-UK alliance, which, after all, is the major plank of our international security relationships. And you can take exception to the individual actions of a president. You don't have to agree with everything a single administration does. And actually, there are things that the UK government has done and will continue to do that the White House doesn't always agree with. But the reality is, away from the personalities, the core of that relationship is absolutely fundamental to the security of Western democracies.
Well, one current area of disagreement is over the Chagos Islands deal, something that you, I know, have opposed, and many in the House of Lords. And yet, until today, we thought that the Trump administration was going to support, or at least not oppose, the selling or giving away of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. Trump's changed his mind.
Well, President Trump says that the deal is now stupid. And in my view, that means that the deal simply can't go ahead.
Is it a veto?
I think it is an effective veto, and I'll explain exactly why. Even though the UK and Mauritius have signed a bilateral treaty, and that is the deal that Starmer refers to, the reality is that the US was not a party in that bilateral treaty. The treaty also hasn't been ratified. It's still in Parliament. It's coming back to the House of Commons today and to the House of Lords on Monday. So the process isn't completed on the UK side. The US has an effective veto because the Diego Garcia military base is a joint US-UK base. If the President of the United States has decided now that he doesn't support the deal, I don't think there's very much that Keir Starmer can do about it. Indeed, the former Foreign Secretary David Lammy himself said very openly that if President Trump doesn't support the deal, there's no deal. So I think for all intents and purposes, the deal is now dead.
So that's going to change. There could be dramas in the Commons today when it comes back to the Commons this afternoon.
There will be, and I've put down a urgent question in the House of Lords today to try to get ministers from Labour to come and answer what their plan is now that the US has withdrawn support. For those of us who followed it in Parliament, there have been many, many occasions where Labour ministers have stood up at the dispatch box and said, this deal is going ahead because the US supports it. And now, whatever you think of the dynamics and the way that President Trump communicates, there's now no doubt that he no longer supports it.
And why do you think that the Labour government have done this? Is it guilt over our colonial past? Is it as simplistic as that?
I think it's partially a misplaced guilt over that. The way that the UK acted in the administration of the Chagos Islands and the forced removal of Chagosians was wrong.
Yeah.
But two wrongs don't make a right. And this deal is essentially wrong because Chagosians themselves say that we don't want to be governed by Mauritius. In fact, the Chagosians I've been speaking through the course of this campaign, they're some of the most patriotic, pro-UK voices that there are in the UK today. Many of them were already here. They're British citizens. Some of them have served in the UK Armed Forces. You know, their record is completely, without any criticism when it comes to their patriotism and their support for the UK. And I think, frankly, from Labour, it's a staggering policy. Labour has come in and said, it's going to right all the wrongs of the past, but it's falling into a massive trap here by creating a huge new wrong that will be very difficult to unwind. Now, thankfully, President Trump has come in, as a lot of us thought that he would do, all the way through this process. There's been a lot of conversations going on in DC. There's been a lot of trips. A lot of it's been going on under the radar to make our case to the US administration. And I think, whatever the circumstances with Greenland, the reality is that as far as international negotiations are concerned, these are different issues. And Trump has now put the brakes on.
Certainly has. Well, fascinating, Lord Kempsell.
Yes, thank you very much. Isn't it crazy, Andrew, that we have to appeal to a foreign power to preserve our own national interest against our own government?
But also, we were going to pay Mauritius £35 billion. It's a country that's reeling from a cost of living crisis.
And at the same time, that same foreign power seems to be blowing apart NATO.
It does.
So who knows where we'll be tomorrow, Andrew?
Indeed. Now, here's your chance to win £85,000 in our biggest cash giveaway, tax-free. Here's how you do it.
There's only 2 weeks left to ensure you're in the draw to win our biggest cash prize so far. An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
Hi, I'm Jane from Manchester and I won £54,321 with the Great British Giveaway. It is real and it does happen to everyday people like myself, and that one text has just made my life 100% better.
But you have to hurry, as lines close on Friday the 30th of January. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 9th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Panel are back. We have Piers Pottinger, no stranger to this programme, and my old sparring partner, Kevin Maguire, who is one half of the Piers versus Maguire podcast.
The better half.
Well, you might say that. You would say that. I'll let you have that small cheek point if you insist. Let's talk about China and the Chinese embassy. Yeah. The Prime Minister is going to China next week, Piers. This had to be signed off.
This was so predictable, yes.
Right. Do you think it's a terrible mistake?
Well, I think it is, probably. Because now it appears, again, we go back to America, saying that they're worried about it. They have serious security concerns. We apparently have looked at it. Yeah. This whole thing has been going on since 2018, and even in 2018, the Labour borough of Tower Hamlets, not normally people I would stand up for, but in their wisdom, they rejected the planning permission. It was called in. And then Angela Rayner, again, not someone I'd normally support, postponed the decision because of the concerns. And Then I think it was Rachel Reeves went to China and did some sort of deal that, again, one of these trade deals we've never seen anything of. And she, I think, when she was there, or it was Jonathan Powell, quietly said, of course, we're going to let you have the embassy.
Jonathan Powell, who's the Prime Minister's Foreign Affairs advisor.
And the problem is our embassy in Beijing, when the Chinese don't like what we're saying about them, they tinker around with the water and energy supply and make life miserable for our diplomats in Beijing, which is incidentally quite a small number. The thing is, this embassy is way out of proportion to the number of Chinese living in Britain. It's also by far the biggest embassy in Europe. And it's not just us. The Netherlands, Denmark, Switzerland even, neutral old Switzerland, have raised security concerns. I think China is a national security threat. There is no question. And I would not be allowing them to have this vast... it's not an embassy, it's a barracks, it's a fortress, and it's also there for spying.
And Kevin, my worry about it as well, until the Daily Telegraph got hold of the detailed plans, everything that was going underground was redacted. The plan,
but the government knew, it's just it wasn't publicly available.
Yeah, but why can't we all see it?
Yeah, well, no, look, I'm always
the planning process is supposed to be about transparency.
I'm always in favour of openness and transparency on that. But the government knew because it had seen the plans. It was said it was on security issues, so people who want to attack the embassy won't know that. China's got a terrible human rights record. It's a dictatorship, unquestionably. It's also the world's second largest economy, soon to be the world's largest economy. And it's how do you deal with that? They want this great statement embassy on that old Royal Mint site. It's just to the north of Tower Bridge, the Tower of London. They're making a big statement with it. I think the security aspect has been massively overblown because the spooks have nodded it through. All this stuff about cables, that's not how you spy on us. You don't get some old crocodile clips on some cables. If you're going to do that, you go to the data centres, you know, where it's coming through. So all that's a bit nonsense.
So why have 5 of our allies objected to it?
Because they always object in a way. You say, we'll object to all sorts around the world. Because say, what are your objections? It's how you decide whether something is safe to be approved. You say, what are the downsides? That's what you do.
Isn't this about the Prime Minister kowtowing to one of the worst world leaders, President Xi, before he goes next week?
The last government would have approved this. I bet you Kemi Badenoch would have approved it if she was in Downing Street. Even Nigel Farage if he was in Downing Street.
Well, you Mystic Meg.
Because Mystic Mag, please, as Maguire, if you don't mind. But of course they would do it because you don't want to annoy the Chinese. I mean, that's the truth of it on an embassy.
International diplomacy about more than that, than annoying the Chinese.
Well, I mean, it sleeps 200 people. There are 200 rooms for people to sleep in. That's above ground, as well as facilities for people to spend a lot of time underground, which is the sinister aspect of it, in some sort of bunker. I mean, the thing is, it's emblematic of our relationship with China. And again, it's one of those things where we are weak and China is strong. And we have to let them have this embassy because otherwise they'd fool around with our embassy and cause us problems. They've made it very clear. I mean, the interesting thing, as Kevin hit upon, is China's human rights are probably the worst in the world. And you don't hear much from people like Amnesty International about the persecution of the Uyghurs.
No.
Probably one of the worst things in the world. Well, no one seems to do anything about it.
They're in concentration
No one ever
camps,
stands up to these people. And the more we give in to China on the basis of... I mean, we must never put the defence of our realm ahead of trade... trade deals ahead of the defence of our realm. And putting trade with China ahead of defending ourselves
you say
wrong.
trade, but the truth is that just as we were talking the last hour about our economic dependence on the United States, we're also extremely economically dependent on the Chinese. And
I'm afraid it shows just how insignificant this country has become.
Well, we're a middling power. We've got to accept that. And what it's emblematic of is gone are the days when in the 19th century we could send gunboats and soldiers to burn down Chinese palaces because they wouldn't buy our heroin from
Not
India.
Our finest hour.
No, it's certainly not. The colonial past is kind of still being cleaned up.
I think this is all still revenge for the Opium Wars, personally. Yeah. Shall we move on to a slightly more frivolous story? Zia Yusuf, of course, closely associated with the former UK, posted an interesting tweet over the weekend where he expressed horror that members of different political parties were able to get along well behind the scenes at various different TV programmes.
We can read it out. Well, I can't read that. Well, we can't read that because whoever's put that on must have
Anyway, if you have
40.
the most amazing eyesight in the world, you will see that he's expressing his disgust that people who are politically opposed to each other can get along behind the scenes.
It's astonishing, Maguire, because you and I have never agreed politically on anything. No. We don't agree on anything about anything. We don't even agree on football because I can't stand it and you adore it. But, I mean, the idea that political adversaries, political opponents can't be mates. I mean, you know in the House of Commons, some of the best friendships are across the chamber.
That's right. And look, what's wrong with being civil and polite and getting on? He's going to be furious, Zia Yusuf, when he finds out that Nigel Farage and Richard Tice are chummy with a lot of MPs in Labour as well as the Conservatives.
You probably had a beer with Nigel Farage.
Many times, and he's good company.
And I bet he had to pay for it.
He's good company.
I bet he had to pay for
good company for the first couple, despite the fact I disagree with almost everything he says. And, you know, you and I, Pearce versus Maguire, you can lock horns, but you don't want to be disagreeable.
Well, dare I say it's still a great British quality.
Yes.
That despite being on opposing sides, one can get on and behave towards each other in a civilised way.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great strengths still of this country, that we can do that. And it's very important. I think Yusuf, who is clearly a man of temper, he walked out, don't forget, of his own party.
He came back 2 days later.
And then came back very quickly later. And now he's becoming less relevant in his party with all these defections from the Conservatives.
I think you put your finger on it. Absolutely. This was after. It was very ill-tempered, might have fallen out of bed the wrong side, may have a pinched heart, or it may be he's just really cheesed off that Jenrick's come in and he'll be above him.
And Jenrick wants to be Shadow Chancellor and Zia Yusuf wants to be Shadow Chancellor.
Do you think there's something a bit more... I'm sure there are personal elements to this as well, but it is a growing trend in recent years, not just with Zia Yusuf, but also on the left as well, and I'm sure on the right, to see your political opponents as somehow dehumanised, not worthy of respect, whereas actually the whole point of democracy is that we all want Britain to be better. We might have different ideas of how to do it, but if you see your opponent as an actual enemy, then democracy's failed.
Well, I think once you, like this government, start cancelling elections and preventing people from voting, this is a very, very serious step in the wrong direction. And it will cause us to have more problems like this, statements from other people other than Yusuf. But really, the point is that once you start getting into the gutter level and hurling insults, it's normally because you've lost the argument.
Yeah,
and all you're doing is causing unpleasantness. It's not helping any situation.
But in all the years I've been doing politics, Kevin, you and I started in Western the same year, I think, 1988. Most of the disagreements and unpleasantness is not across the side of the chamber. It's within the Tory party because of the rivalry who's going to get to the top. The same with the Labour Party. Or the rivalry who's going to be...
The and real spite is within each party because of the ambitions of those...
It was Churchill famously said to a young backbencher, he pointed to the opposite, they said, over there's the opposition behind you. The Tories said, that's your enemy.
Think of some of the things Jeremy Corbyn is saying about Starmer, his old best friend.
But look, it's people in their daily lives will have family, friends, neighbours they will disagree with, but they'll still chat to them and have a cup of tea, and that's the way it should be.
If they don't, it's the end of civilised society.
It really is. So I hope Zia Yusuf just had a bad day.
He had a bad day.
Reflects on what he said. And Jeremy Hunt replied, and he was in the picture, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Conservative Chancellor of the Exchequer, replied, Zia, I've met you in a green room and we had a nice little chat. So he doesn't even, Yusuf doesn't even do and behave the way he seems to be seen. To call people Britain-hating traitors.
But I do think
they get on. I mean, come on.
Also, it's the point that reform, now they've got all these defectors inside. Reform's USP is it's a party of change.
Yes.
It's different from all the others. It's the only way they're going to get people to vote for them is because they're different. It's change.
Yeah.
The most powerful political slogan in any campaign is time for a change.
Yeah.
And that's what Reform will be standing on.
Yeah.
So they have to distance themselves from the traditional party political niceties.
Yeah.
And so this is what I'm sure partly also why Yusuf does this. We're not part of this cosy relationship.
Except they've got 22 ex-Tory MPs.
And then they take on all these Tory MPs.
Yeah.
But Yusuf knows in social media now, you say something like this, which is ridiculous and outrageous, silly, stupid, inflammatory, and you'll get a group of people who will cheer you so you get attention.
Who is the Labour defector that's going to Reform? Is it an ex-Red Wall Labour MP?
No, if it's who I think it is, was an MP, is now a peer, but not a Labour peer.
Well, no, Kate Hoey said it's not her.
It's not her. Then, all right, there's one other Labour peer, current.
The former Birmingham Edgbaston MP.
Gizzle Stewart? No, that's not the name I've heard. But I've just not spoken to the person. I've just not spoken.
Name and shame.
I've not spoken to him, and I've not spoken to the MP. As also thought. I think it would be unfair when I've not spoken.
All right. Don't forget Kevin Maguire and Pierce Maguire. Pierce vs Maguire podcast every Wednesday night comes out. Take might be out earlier.
Piers, thank you to you as well.
Lovely to see you, Piers.
I don't have a podcast.
No.
Well,
you'd be a very welcome guest.
What's wrong with you?
Well, thanks, chaps. See you soon. But first, we're going to go to your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much. The top stories. That breaking news this hour that the government has approved plans for China's new embassy in London. That's despite criticism from MPs and campaigners over its security implications. Donald Trump says Britain's great stupidity of ceding the Chagos Islands to Mauritius is another in a very long line of national security reasons why Greenland has to be acquired. He said that on Truth Social. The US president saying last night he was 100% committed to hitting the UK and European allies with tariffs over their opposition to his plan to annex Greenland. The water industry is set for a once-in-a-generation set of reforms, the government has said, as it proposes new legislation to overhaul the system. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. There's more news from me at 12 o'clock.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. And coming up at noon, we've got Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Nana. They're here in the studio. What's coming up?
Well, we could talk really serious politics like the Chinese embassy and all the other stuff that's going on, which is quite incredible. But let's talk about the Beckhams. Because Lizzie Candy will be giving us some real top...
It is the top trending story.
I know.
Because in a sense, Tom's shaking his head in despair, but they are like now the other royal family, the Beckhams.
I mean, every time you thought that perhaps it was the Peltz, Nicola Peltz being horrible, rejecting the dress, it wasn't actually.
When we write about this in the Daily Mail, online, it goes through the roof.
Unemployment's up,
there will be plenty of Chagos, of Greenland, of Diego Garcia, of Chinese embassy.
And
we're
plenty
the
of
real news
Beckhams.
there too.
And plenty of Beckhams too.
We have to.
You do, Tom.
And some unemployment figures, I'm sure. Thank you, guys. All that's coming up at midday. But up next...
Social media is about to change because even Labour now are moving in and saying potentially that people under 16 will be denied access to social media. Is that the right thing? This is Britain's Newsroom, GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Metalvis for GB News. It's a fine day in the east with some sunshine, although breezy. Meanwhile, wet and windy weather sweeps into the west associated with this area of low pressure. It's a slow-moving system, so it's already turning wet and windy in western parts of the UK, Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest, and it will remain the case into the afternoon that we'll see continued bouts of heavy rain and strong winds. The winds at their strongest around coastal parts of Wales and the southwest, peaking at 60-65 mile-per-hour gusts later in the afternoon as the heaviest rain moves through. Ahead of that, some sunshine, highs of 9 to 11 Celsius, so a little above average for the time of year. Patchy cloud around and some showery rain pushing into central Scotland by the end of the afternoon into the evening. It's at this point that the weather system moves some rain and strengthening winds into western and southwestern Scotland, starting to clear Northern Ireland, but approaching western parts of northwest England as well as Wales, and we're going to see that rain gradually make eastward progress across many parts of the country overnight. So the clear spells in the east don't last long. This wet and windy weather will move through during the evening and the first part of the night. And then it clears to showers across Northern Ireland, much of Wales and the southwest, again accompanied by gusty winds. So with all of the weather taking place overnight, it's going to be a frost-free night, temperatures at around 5 to 7 Celsius. Now, we've got two areas of rain first thing Wednesday, one clearing Scotland, especially central and northeast Scotland, then a gap with some brighter weather for a time, central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, northern England, before the next area of rain moves in during the afternoon, pushing in from the south, accompanied by gusty winds once again, and followed by some fairly heavy showers.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Andrew and Miriam with you. So the Beckhams is an extraordinary story. I know you're fascinated by every word of it, Miriam Cates. You can't get enough of it. But Brooklyn Beckham...
Never mind the Chinese embassy.
...who's married the daughter of billionaires, has accused his parents of trying to ruin his marriage and mistreating his wife, Nicola. Let's talk to our showbiz editor.
Yes, in a week of defections and dodgy dealings, this is the one that matters most.
Tell us about the wedding dance. So the wedding dance, all prepared. Brooklyn Beckham is obviously going to do the first dance with his wife, Nicola Peltz, daughter of billionaires in America. The singer who's famous, but whose name escapes me.
The singer is a South African singer. His name escapes me as well.
Right, okay.
He was singing, the idea was he was going to do a rendition of Elvis's I Can't Help Falling.
So he says, and now let's welcome the most beautiful woman in the world. So everybody assumes it's going to be...
That was Mark Anthony. He was the sort of master of ceremony.
OK, so everybody assumes he's going to welcome onto the dance floor Brooklyn Beckham's wife, and he says Victoria Beckham, who then, according to Brooklyn Beckham, dances very inappropriately with her own son.
Well, this is
very difficult to comprehend.
It's one of the most contentious claims in the statement. For those who don't know, the statement basically is a 6-page bombshell incineration of his ties with his family. When speaking of the dance in particular, he accuses his mum, Victoria, of hijacking the first dance. Apparently, him and his wife, Nicola Peltz, had prepared weeks and weeks.
Of course they had.
To do the first dance, and Victoria hijacked it. However, since this statement has been put out, there's been quite a few claims that perhaps all isn't what seems.
There's always two sides to every story.
So the publication Vogue obviously had exclusive access to this wedding, as all big celebrity weddings do. They sell it off to a magazine. Online sleuths
even when they're billionaires, they flog it to a magazine.
There's always more money to be had, Andrew. But so they flogged it to this magazine, and footage emerged, and people have found this footage and these photos of said first dance. Vogue published photos of Brooklyn and Nicola making their way to the dance floor, and then they published photos of their first dance to this Elvis track. Victoria was nowhere to be seen. So now all of a sudden everybody is saying, oh, what happened to this allegedly inappropriate dance where Victoria not only danced with him, but danced on her son? That was one of the explosive claims in the statement. One of the other explosive claims in the statement, which is now getting quite a bit of traction, is that Victoria apparently refused at the 11th hour to make Nicola's dress. Apparently that left them devastated, scrambling. In the end, they had to opt for a Valentino.
How terrible. Must have been devastating.
I would have gone to Oxford.
But apparently that's been debunked now. Apparently her stylist at the time did an interview at the time saying that they had been preparing for a year with this Valentino dress and they had 2 fittings. So all of a sudden these claims against Victoria may not be what they turn out to be. There was plenty of other sort of incendiary claims within the statement. The fact that he didn't want to reconcile. We had news last month that he only wanted to speak through solicitors. He has no plans to reconcile. He's not being controlled by his wife. That's all backwards, quote unquote. It's his family who have controlled him his entire life, the Beckham brand. There's so many others. Apparently his mum and dad have sold stories on him over the last year.
But why has he put this statement out now?
Again, another source of contention. Is this just for him to take the narrative himself? Is it a barbed shot at his parents? Has something on behind the scenes where he feels he has to? You know, the thing with this is, in my opinion, it can't be a big money grab because otherwise he'd have done a big TV interview.
Well, he didn't need the money.
Well, like I said before, Andrew, there's more money to be had wherever. But he didn't do a big TV interview. He just went on Instagram and exploded.
Right.
So, again, the reasons as to why he's done this, we don't know. David and Victoria haven't said anything, although David is at the World Economic Forum today.
What's he doing there?
A speech,
Is he going to give his view on monetarism versus Kenny's view on economics?
I pay to see
Who else would you want to hear from on that subject?
That's the funniest thing I've heard this week.
But he's been refusing questions as you'd expect.
I want to know his view on money supply. That's what I really want to know.
That's one thing apparently he would talk about, because he wouldn't talk about his
He's in
son.
favour of quantitative easing.
But can you explain to Miriam, who's struggling to show that she's interested in this extraordinary fallout, are they like the celebrity royals now, the Beckhams?
The parallels between them and the Sussexes have been everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, the idea that, you know, this sort of ugly duckling...
Yeah. Miriam is trying to show that she's interested in this.
Who has been poorly treated his whole life.
She's not even trying to show she's interested. I am, actually. I've got to say, Alex, my newspaper Daily Mail's been writing about this a lot, and it's had huge reader response.
Well, like you mentioned, it's beyond Trump and Greenland. It's one of the biggest stories that's going on social media today.
Miriam will be talking about nothing else the rest of the week.
It's true. Just think, without social media, we wouldn't know any
and
of
just
this.
think, David Beckham holding forth on the state of the world economy at Davos today with world leaders.
Should we send Chris Hope to ask him
Just on a nice point about the parallels with the Sussexes, they did. Brooklyn signed off his statement asking for privacy.
Oh, that old chestnut.
So, there you go.
They really are the
Thanks,
Sussexes. Alex Davis, you did really well.
Well, moving on, if you want to get away from it all and go and find some holiday sun, here's our forecast.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Further wet and windy weather in and around the Mediterranean, particularly for parts of southern Italy and Greece. A very soggy day in Athens, likely on Wednesday, with a gusty wind here. Some of that wet and windy weather also affecting parts of Croatia and southern Italy. Northern Italy turning drier, along with Corsica. Drier too on Wednesday across the Balearics, but another weather system sitting in the Bay of Biscay, bringing more showery rain to Portugal and more western parts of Spain. Showers in Madeira, sunny spells in the Canaries.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Miriam. Now, we could be witnessing yet another Labour U-turn as Sir Keir Starmer has set his sights on a social media ban for teenagers, as more than 60 Labour MPs have urged the Prime Minister to consider the move.
Labour will consult on the Australia-style ban. If you remember, Australia was the first country in the Western country to do this before they make a decision in the summer.
Well, we're now joined by the actress and online safety campaigner, Sophie Winkleman. Sophie, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. What do you make of the statement that the government's put out this morning? Are you pleased with the movement that they've made?
I was feeling a little bit more hopeful a couple of days ago when he said nothing's off the table. I thought we were heading towards something quite significant. I'm a little bit disappointed this morning because it looks like he'd be more in favour of a consultation, and I'm not really sure why we need a consultation when we've got all the countries, doctors, teachers, police saying this is a national emergency in childhood, and they're all backing it. So I feel a bit despondent this morning.
And who's he consulting? Is your worry that he's not consulting Labour MPs because he's got a lot of political difficulties, Sophie, as you know? He's consulting all the relevant bodies, but we know all their position anyway.
Yeah, I'm worried that it's a kicking it into the long grass thing. And I think we now do have causation, and we have enough evidence that this is a disaster for children. I'm baffled by the argument that children need to access things like Childline and the NSPCC when they can do that on the internet. We're not saying don't have the internet, we're saying don't have harming algorithm-fed social media. So I'm very confused by that argument. I'd love to be set straight. I'd love to know what Miriam thinks. You've been an amazing voice on this. I know you're interviewing me, but I'd really like to know what you think about that. Yeah, I'm feeling slightly worried this morning.
Well, if you do want to know my opinion, I agree that we're not there yet, but I think if you look at how the conversation has moved on in just 2 years, then actually, in terms of politics, I think we've made some huge progress.
But can I just jump in and say, I think you need to explain, because Sophie makes the point, you know, the teenagers can still have access to the internet. You're talking about social media algorithms. Can you be clear what it is that you want banned?
I think platforms like TikTok, which destroys the mind's ability to focus, quite aside from the harmful videos that children are seeing on that. Same with Snapchat. Instagram makes children feel awful about themselves. It's very, very unhealthy platform. I think the the things that you join, and you're your own brand, and people can access to you, and you're connected to hundreds of people who you don't actually know, and the big tech companies feed you material that you might not even have asked for, like sort of, a young girl could look up a recipe for a smoothie, and then the company will think, oh, maybe she's worried about her weight, and send her a ton of weight loss videos and exercise videos, and suddenly you've triggered an eating disorder. So if you have checks on a computer and safeguards on a computer, and you Google something, I'm not mad about that either, but that's much safer than a child being on Instagram, Snapchat and TikTok.
Now, these companies, the tech companies, would say that they do have safeguards in place, that they're abiding by the Online Safety Act. But what you're saying and campaigners saying is that this doesn't go far enough. We need a ban. Public are behind that now. Vast majority of voters agree. But the big question mark is, how is that achieved? What are we learning so far from Australia, who have obviously recently tried to implement this?
Well, I think you put it onto the big tech companies, because they are very well aware. They're massive enough and powerful and rich enough to know pretty much exactly what age all of us are from whatever we look up. So they know if they're looking at a 13-year-old or a 14-and-a-half-year-old simply by the data they've got on them. So if you make it big old fines, if someone under 16 is joining Instagram, it's quite quick and it's quite efficient. And I've seen a lot of evidence from the teachers in Australia who say even in a week, the children are concentrating more, they're sleeping better, they're playing more with their classmates. So I've only seen positive stuff from Australia. Maybe that's because that's what I'm fed, but I think it's going really well.
And Sophie, just really, really briefly, because we're out of time, do you think a year from now the government position will have hardened on this?
I really hope so. I want all the peers to back Lord Nash's amendment tomorrow, and then it'll go to the House of Commons, and hopefully Britain will be tough and muscular on this issue.
Sophie Winkleman, thank you so much.
And best of luck with your campaign, Sophie, because I think most people watching and listening to GBNews will support it, don't you think?
Protect our kids, absolutely.
Protect our kids, that's a very, very, very good message. Well, interesting day.
What a day.
What a day. Donald Trump, who knows what's happening. And don't forget, Donald Trump will be in Davos but when we're on our programme tomorrow, so there'll be plenty to talk about then. He's on his way as we speak. Will Keir Starmer go?
Maybe we need a social media ban for Donald Trump. Up next, Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Nana with all the latest.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Fast-moving world events while leaders gather in Davos. Could the Chagos deal finally be upended? All the meanwhile, China getting an embassy in London.
Yes, Donald Trump posted this morning, 7 a.m. Shockingly, our brilliant NATO ally, the United Kingdom, is currently planning to give away the Diego Garcia for no reason whatsoever. Do you agree? Weather is next.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Generally, things a bit brighter out there today. Still a bit of mist and fog around and quite a bit of cloud, but many areas will be dry. The main exception to that in the far southwest. West Wales, southwest England, already seeing some outbreaks of rain, and the wind's really picking up here, getting very gusty indeed. There is a Met Office yellow warning in place, 40, 50 mile an hour gusts, perhaps even 60 to 65 over hills. We'll see some of that wet and windy weather extending across Northern Ireland, 1 or 2 showers in eastern England, but a good part of England and Scotland will stay dry. As I mentioned, a bit brighter than yesterday. Temperatures about average, but feeling a lot colder with the wind and the rain in the southwest. A pretty grim end to the day for much of Wales and southwest England. Some heavy bursts of rain and still very lively gusts. Further east, generally still dry and fine at this stage, but the rain will be creeping its way towards the Midlands during the evening rush hour. At the same time, it should start to ease a little bit in Northern Ireland. We'll see some outbreaks of rain just filtering into southwest Scotland. A few showers across the Northern Isles perhaps, but a good part of Scotland also dry through this evening's rush hour. Now, the breeze will be picking up, coming in from the North Sea. That's going to be a feature of the weather over the next few days. The rain will extend, as I mentioned, across the Midlands, then into parts of northern England and up across Scotland, with a few showers following on behind. With enough wind, that'll help to stop any mist and fog forming, except maybe over the higher routes, and help to keep the temperatures up above freezing as well. For tomorrow, though, many places will see outbreaks of rain. We start pretty wet across a good part of Scotland, and there's those winds feeding in the heavy rain here. That could cause some issues over the next few days. The second half of the week looks very wet, so we have another Met Office yellow warning in place, and then a zone of wet weather marches northwards across all other areas. So there'll be a spell of rain for all of us at some point tomorrow, getting quite windy in places as well. Temperatures, again, close to average, 7 to 10 Celsius.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
Hi, I'm Jane. I won £54,321 with the Great British Giveaway. Oh, definitely please enter. It is real, and that one text has just made my life 100% better.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
Which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Tuesday, the 20th of January. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Nana Acquia. President Donald Trump launches a blistering attack on Britain's plan to hand over sovereignty of the Chagos Islands, branding the deal an act of great stupidity and warning that it puts a vital US military base at risk.
Elsewhere, the government has approved plans for a vast new Chinese embassy in London, pressing ahead despite years of warnings from critics over national security risks.
Well, critics have already condemned this decision by ministers, accusing the government of political expediency over a desire to get Chinese money ahead of national security.
We have to have it. They have to have this done. They can't protect it. Denmark, they're wonderful people. And I know the leaders are very good people, but they don't even go there.
President Donald Trump ramps up his push to take control of Greenland, questioning Denmark's ability to defend it as the Prime Minister urges the EU to avoid a damaging trade war with Washington.
And in more serious news, Brooklyn Beckham breaking his silence on the family feud, insisting he won't reconcile. But is brand Beckham now on the brink?
The governments are going to be consulting on banning social media for under-16s as ministers move towards phone-free schools and tougher rules on tech firms to protect children.
Day 2 at the High Court for Prince Harry. Yes, he's back in the witness box as the privacy battle with the Daily Mail's publisher continues, alongside a string of high-profile claimants.
Yeah, it just does seem that the Labour government are intent on just self-destruction of this country. I mean, fancy, first of all, the Chagos, which I find incredible. I'm glad President Trump has said that we're giving it away for no reason whatsoever. And now, of course, you know, we've got everything else going on. The Chinese embassy, where 5 of our allies are also saying, don't do it.
It does seem strange that all of this is happening today. And this is actually the 20th of January is the anniversary of the original treaty that handed over Hong Kong from China to the British. The Chinese have a very, very long memory. I wonder if some people in Beijing would be very, very happy that this approval came on a day that they see as beginning their century of humiliation. The Chinese have incredibly long memories. Perhaps this is a sort of reversal of that. They want their century to be this.
It should have been yesterday, though, because that's Blue Monday. But hello, Mark. Speaking of Blue Monday, do you remember that? New Order? Great.
Lovely to see you both.
Good to see you.
Listen, are we surprised? I don't think we're surprised that this decision has gone the way it's gone, just ahead of that visit by Sir Keir Starmer to China. Critics already saying, look, you're just putting national security on, you know, the back burner here because you're more interested in what is political.